So
You're alive.
Thank you. Thank you for returning, and we start our third meeting of the day. And this is a meeting that is to talk about capital improvement priorities. We will start by, we've had the pledge, so I think we'll do the roll call.
Commissioner Kramer. Present. Commissioner O'Rourke.
here,
Commissioner Rexroth.
present.
Commissioner Wessel.
Here.
Commissioner Ross. Here. Commissioner Alguier. I'm here. Commissioner Lauer. Present. Here.
We do have a proposed agenda. We don't have all the information on broadband. Point is coming to our Tuesday morning meeting. Kathy has just handed out a piece of information on a charter project. But I suggest we wait until after the Point meeting on Tuesday to deal with broadband. And I also suggest that we take Parks and Recreation off, and we only deal with HVAC today. We have our engineer online, and we have Gary coming. And that's the project that we really need to focus on today, if somebody's willing to make that motion to amend the agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion?
Just
Yes, Commissioner Lautner?
So if you're going to take Parks and Rec and broadband off, when do you suppose we're going to talk about them before we approve the budget?
Pardon?
When are we going to talk about those other items? If you take them off the agenda today?
When we get more information next week from both the charter project and the Point project, so that we have all of the numbers in. We don't. Point asked for the meeting. We do not know exactly what they're going to say. And I don't think we can make, my personal opinion, and that's, I don't think we can make decisions on anything till we know the total picture. Commissioner Rexroth?
Just for clarification, even the heat pump thing would just be informational, just we're not gonna decide because we have looming big items out there that we don't know answers to. So, and I think we need to address them like we did the last time.
Okay, that didn't answer Parks and Rec. So when are we going to talk about Parks and Recreation?
Together with all those things when we have all the information.
You want all those other costs in before you decide on Parks and Rec? Is that what you're saying?
That's my position, that's one commissioner, it seems like we need to look, in order to establish a priority, we say yes to one thing, and then we find out we have a problem somewhere else, we're kind of stuck without having all the information all at once, but that's just my opinion.
Yes, Commissioner O'Hare.
That would be my opinion too, because we have to find out what our situation is after we've fulfilled our broadband commitment before we can make decisions about other capital outlays.
If you're looking for a motion to approve whatever agenda we have.
I think you already have a motion and
You already have
support
a
to
motion,
take.
yes.
Okay, good.
And B is just for confidence, it's not action, it's just, okay. So I think we have.
And to be
just
clear,
vote.
Did we,
don't disagree about finding where the cost is. My question was when, but we really don't have an answer of when.
I suggest that we bring our calendars to Tuesday's meeting and schedule a session to deal with all of our capital expenses together collectively before Thanksgiving. Okay? Good. All those in support of the amended agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We now have public comment, and you have 3 minutes to speak to any agenda item or any topic that you think commissioners need to hear from you.
Sorry, here you go. Is Bill Wiesner, Elmwood Township.
I apologize.
Wasn't there, we set in place something where
There was no agenda item regarding the,
For executive committee.
oh, okay, that's right, okay.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay, just double check, thank you.
Whoops.
Can I get maybe 20 seconds for that? I'm sorry.
Oh, you're more than welcome to have more than 20 more seconds.
Well, it took about, I'm just trying to be fair. But it does. It fits perfectly with the agenda here. The broadband, the 5G. If we don't get this election, so it's verifiable and honest, the broadband will be used to track us and put people away that might be too disruptive or disagree. The HVAC or the power for the HVAC and the heat pumps, we turned off unless you're, if you disagree too much. And the parks and recreation, they're going to just relabel that camps and put people that might disagree and think there's election fraud in those camps. So I'm just going to continue on with the election because it's related to all of those things, even if it didn't have to be. Michelle was saying again, difficult to make it all work, following the laws, you have to be extremely cautious. Let's go to the honest, verifiable election with cameras, and we won't have that problem. People will be happy. You won't have 62% of the people thinking there was election fraud. And with the cameras, you won't have to recount either, because everybody can go online and look at each individual ballot. And it worked in Missouri, took 10 minutes longer. And with the canvassing meeting, I was in that this morning too. And I appreciated the first public comment. That was by law required. And at the end, I says, can I speak again at the end? They said, well, no, just one is required. And I asked, well, could you give me permission? I mean, is that allowable? If you gave me permission, it is, but we're not giving you permission. Okay, so I'm thinking a canvassing board worried about the authenticity of the election, and someone comes in with lots of evidence, verifiable evidence, and they don't want to hear from him. I'm a little concerned about that. We just go right by the record and follow this, and if this checks off and this checks off, we're golden. No, you're not. Elections are being stolen that way. And I'm done. I'm sorry. Oh, wait, I got 10 more seconds. I'll just continue on this and the annals of democracy, counting votes. Check that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Yes.
Hi, Carrie Onan, Centerville Township. Thank you. And the only thing I have to say right now is on the last meeting, but relating to every meeting, is it possible, forgive me for not knowing the procedure. I know a little bit of Robert's rules, just enough to be annoying. So is it possible for the chair to set a time limit for any comment? Because what I'm hoping to avoid moving forward is the impression that the chair is picking and choosing when to interrupt and say, you've spoken enough, you're taking up too much time. And I would think there must be a way in the rules that already, sets it up so you're never targeted as being that person. You know what I mean? I know you're not supposed to interact, but I'm looking for a way that if it's a time thing and you want to give everybody a fair shot, then I would say, whatever that time is. I mean, we back here, as much as we have busy lives, that would mean a ton to know that no one was taking a partisan approach to one commissioner over another. I understood she talked longer, but she may have had more to say. I didn't get the impression that no one else could speak. So it was just the matter of shutting down the one that still had something to say. And wow, especially for those of us who might have elected her, that's a slap in the face. And so I'm hoping you guys can find a way to set the groundwork so that you avoid that scenario again, because I'm sure it's not necessary. That's what I'm thinking. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I will be happy to talk to you after about resources. Any other public comment? Any commissioner comment? Okay.
I have to say, yesterday morning was one of the best days of the year for me. And I heard that we got the Robin grant.
Sure it was.
I have had nightmares about the people in my district. Who have
And
been
does anybody want to make comment? Have we never not heard from Gwen about fiber, no matter what the topic is?
We're happy.
Should I share what I said?
It's right up there with EVs.
I can be a nicer person now
You are
because I'm
Okay,
happy,
here we go.
because I have happy
Here we go.
constituents.
Any other commissioner comments?
And it's good news.
We now are going to deal, Kathy, thanks for being here. And Kathy has handed out an email from Patricia Sonaspittle. This is just an update on the charter project, put that with the materials, more details later. But today we agreed only to deal with HVAC and heat pumps. We're not here to make decisions. We're just going to learn about options. Gary's here and John is here. And Deb is here, so you want to introduce it, Deb?
I'm actually gonna go to the table and sit with Gary, John, so I can provide some insight as well, since I've been involved in these processes. So Gary's with D&W, and he's been working on our heat pumps. And then also, we have John Richardson, who's with us. Oh, I just had a brain cramp.
Apollo, yes.
Thank you. Apollo Engineering. So I think HVAC is the first one that's on. John, can you give us a synopsis if you would? I think this would be helpful since there are 4 commissioners that are new and have not been through this process before. To give, if you could, maybe a brief overview of how we have come to the point of looking initially at the chill beam system in terms of an HVAC option, what the thought process was with that, and when those initial costs, that 3.5 million, was put together as a projection.
Yes, back in, to go to the first part of the history, the county had paid for an assessment. It was a RFP, and it was 18 LCAO 2018-004, and it was basically, it wasn't done by us, it was done by Macon Engineering, and they had gone through and assessed like a good, better, best scenario of what could be done with the building systems. So we picked the ball up from that document, and we looked at the good, better, best scenarios, and we had come up with this current design that we have. And it was based on a lot of recurring costs of replacement of equipment, continuous maintenance type. You know, there was a lot of broad, big picture looking at what would be in the best interest of the county. So we came up with a. And when we say like a chilled beam, I think people think of it's a beam and it's cold, you know, but these are called active chilled beams, which are actually you're ducting air to those units, and they work in that capacity. It's almost so it's not really a beam of sort, but anyways, evaluating all the aspects of how things were. By utilizing, now, when we say an active chill beam, it isn't just that's not the only kind of system that we've got into this. The public areas are more of a conventional air handler with a VAV centralized system. And so the chill beams are more of the office, kind of low occupancy kind of areas, people's offices. And the reason why we went with that was because it gives well, first of all, it utilized a good portion of the existing ducting. We wanted to try to reuse what we had already installed. So it used a good portion of that, but then it gave each person a more of a control of their environment, what they want. So it kind of gave us more zones. So it's probably one of the most cost-effective systems to operate, energy-wise, but then also maintenance-wise. It reduced the maintenance. And I know that there's been a lot of talk of just keeping the existing systems and replacing them as they fail. But that price, if we were at $3 to $3.5 million, I think you could expect to spend that within 10 years and into infinity. It would just it's a recurring cost. The heat pump units last 15 nominal years. So you're going to start replacing them as time goes. So it would be to the end of time. That's how we got where we are with the current design.
So
Is there any questions about that, what I've said so far? Or?
well, let me clarify a couple other things for the board so that they have an understanding. So the cost projection for the alternative HVAC, we'll call it, from what we have currently.
Yeah.
That bid was, or that estimate was put together a year ago, 2 years ago. What was the time frame on that?
Yeah, we had talked with the former commissioner or former supervisor Janik and Chet, and it was, I would have to say it was about a year and a half ago, possibly, is when we came up with the projections.
Couple years or at least a year ago.
Yes.
And so I think the board understands that we went out for RFP for this project and we had no bids for that. So we are obviously in a scenario where this is now going to be at least another year. So, John, I hate to put you on the spot, but if we look at cost projections, what is a realistic cost estimate in terms of price increases from the time that this was, initially presented?
In the building, heating, cooling, lighting industry, I think our largest increase in costs have came through the COVID time frame. I wouldn't expect that it would increase again. It may be more near the cost of inflation if I had to estimate it. I think partially also a factor that may bring the actual cost down is that currently, and I do think as part of the reason why we didn't get any bids was that it's just people are overloaded with work. And I think as time goes on, I think that it'll kind of balance out. And I think that people will be maybe a little more hungry or available to bid it. And so I think the numbers will tend to come down a little bit with that idea. So I would anticipate really just the cost of inflation at most would be the cost increase.
So, I mean, listening to you, the heat pump replacement, they have a 15-year life. So I assume that they're all replaced today, that the mean life of that gives us some amount of time, not that they would all be replaced, but the new system you're proposing, does it last forever or does it need to be replaced at some point? I mean, that needs to be amortized over an expected lifetime as well. So when we look at costs, that's the way I would look at it. Granted, we'll have to replace the heat pumps into infinity if we all live that long. But I assume that system you're proposing has some replacement parts that, I mean, unless it's one that never wears out.
No, I would anticipate that it's a minimum 25 years, but with most, like air handlers, you can replace fan motors and belts and that kind of thing to keep it going. There's really not many moving parts to those. There always is possibly like controls. The control systems will become obsolete in 10 or 15 years or so. So there may be upgrades in that respect, but the actual mechanical equipment, I would say, is not going to fail before 25 years.
Okay, so there is a lifetime to it, I guess, there are we have to compare two lifetimes to make a adequate financial decision.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can replace a motor to infinity. I mean, my church, we have a air handler that they put in 1958, so it's still going today. They've replaced the motor and stuff. So, you can make an air handler run forever if you want. So, but there's just maintenance that might have to be done.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
Well, there's the cooling device is a chiller. So, a chiller might have a life of, 25 years. So, I would have to say it's a blending of lifetimes. A chiller, probably 25 years is what you'll get out of it. But the air handlers will go much longer if you maintain and change certain items.
Yes,
Thank
Commissioner.
you. Okay, so to back up a little bit, you were talking about $3 or $3.5 million into infinity. You were talking about the heat pumps? What was?
I would say that, yeah, at any given, and I'm sure Gary can maybe elaborate on maybe the timeline of what we might change out and kind of the occurrence, but you have about 100 units in your building, and I would anticipate that going forward that you could replace 5 to 10 a year for the rest of the time. I mean, as you replace items, as they get to be 15 years old, they'll be needing to be replaced. So, and I think the current cost for a per unit is about $10,000. So you're looking at, somewhere near 100,000 a year.
Okay, then that's what I wanted to make clear. So we're not spending, I want to make it very clear, we're not spending $3 to $3.5 million a year. But what I wanted to verify is what you're saying is it could cost us that much out a ways. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think there'll be a point where you spend $3.5 million, or at some point in the future, running with what you currently have. I believe that there are some pieces of equipment currently that need to be replaced. So the energy recovery unit's not in good shape, and the fluid cooler is not in good shape. So I mean, even right now, there's probably $150,000 worth of bigger equipment that support the heat pumps that need to be replaced. So.
Before we go to Gwen, I don't think John understood your question. At least he didn't answer it the way I think he answered it last time he talked to us. The $3.5 million. You're not talking about the $3.5 million for heat pumps. You're saying if we go to the new system.
Yes, phase 2, phase 3 would be about. I think it's. I don't have the number in front of me. I apologize, but I think it was about 3 to 3.5 million to do the phase 2, phase 3 renovation.
Thank you for that. Sure. Yeah, that's what I wanted to verify. Okay.
So also, if we did that system, it would My understanding is we would be tearing out ceilings and doing a lot of work on the building to change the entire system, right?
Yeah,
What would be
there,
involved in installation?
Moving offices.
I'm sorry, repeat that, please.
What would physically be involved in installation of your system?
We would be removing the existing heat pump units and then installing several larger air handling units to and a new chiller to do that, take the place of the heat pumps. We'd have to remove some ductwork and some of that stuff each per space to adjust to the plans. But and I guess I didn't mention that we have done phase one, which was adding perimeter baseboard heat with boilers. So that was phase one. And when we did that project, phase one, we identified areas that we want to work in, and we moved the people out of there to get the work done, and then they moved back in. So it was kind of a hopscotch, moving people around as we were working in areas and finishing them out. But the idea is to basically, establish work areas, remove ceiling tiles is to get access to above the ceiling, take out the equipment, put the new equipment in. We've phased we have a phase 2 and a phase 3 to this because we wanted to be able to maybe have two calendar years of the work, so we could spread it out over 2 budget terms. But then it's broken up phase 2, phase 3, so that you could have maybe the least impact to the occupants and keep the building occupied during that construction. So I don't know if there's more you need to hear.
No, thank you. That answered the question.
So John, was there an assessment that was done in terms of what the potential cost savings would be to the county to implement this new system? I've not seen that. I just am asking that question.
I think we actually asked something about that a while back to see, okay, what is the projected energy savings? What's the projected maintenance savings? So we can make an informed financial decision. I mean, you're talking a $4 million investment. You gotta have like some idea of return on investment other than just you're gonna save some money and it's gonna be better.
Yeah, right. No, I believe we did that from the initial onset that we had. I'll have to go look and see exactly, but I think that we had done some predictions of what we were going to save. And I can get the board. I can get you guys that. I'll go hunt and find that. It's just not in front of me right this minute.
I kind of have an off the wall question too. There's been some discussion about possible energy savings here at the county, and is the chill beam system compatible with any type of energy savings or solar savings type of application? It's just a question. I'm not necessarily saying that's a direction, but
yeah. Typically when you would be looking at if you want to do like some solar panels on the roof, and you can have solar panels that generate heating water, or you can have them that generate electricity. Typically those systems are a fraction of the total energy used. So you say, maybe I want to reduce my energy by 20%. So you can put in solar panels that will help to offset the electrical usage by 20%. So I think it's to say that we would take the building to a net zero and have no energy, net zero. That's probably not feasible. I mean, unless you put in a big solar photovoltaic array outside, but I will say though that what we've got designed is one of the least energy using systems that you could put into a building. It should be the most efficient, and it is somewhat. Also, you have to look at your maintenance costs and stuff. The maintenance on it will be much less. So, I mean, overall, it will be a cost savings. Anyways.
Not being an expert, this, but both the existing system and the new system use a fair amount of electricity. And whatever you put in for solar would work with either one. They wouldn't actually work with the system, but they would just provide an offset to the cost. So it doesn't matter whether you have heat pumps or whatever the system is. Especially to the extent that natural gas would be probably used, you probably got a boiler in your system either way for winter, when you don't have much sun, when the cooling load is the highest and you have the most sun. That's when you use the most electricity. So either system you have, I believe, would benefit. So,
It just seems like we have so many questions and very few answers to make a decision. Am I missing something, or, I mean, yeah, we need to see exact numbers, don't we, to compare what direction we want to go. Do we have those?
I think part of the challenge, and I think John would admit this, is that without having a successful RFP process, we really don't know what the real cost is.
So can we say we'll stay with the heat pumps until we have an opportunity to get some solid numbers to make a better decision on? Is that?
Well, I think there were two parts. I wanted John to talk to what the HVAC proposal was, and then Gary and I can also speak to where we currently are with with our heat pump initiative. So to kind of give the board as much information as we have.
Would John stay on while Gary does that, and then we might have crosscut? Is that okay, John?
Oh yeah. I'm here to you. Send me away.
Is there anything else, John, you think is relevant that, important that the board know about the process?
The only thing I would say is that we didn't come to our current design on a whim. It was very much talked about, and we went in front of the former board, and we had talked through many items and many days of talking. So it's, I think that it was agreed that was one of the best ways to go forward. There were different ways, but we all agreed that was the best way forward. So that's how we got to where we're at. I mean, it wasn't on a whim at all. That's all I just wanted to say.
So just to kind of address your question, I mean, we almost have to work with an engineer's estimate of costs, because when you send that out and you're gonna ask 3 companies to prepare competitive bids, and they're gonna put 200 man hours into preparing that bid for us to get a real number that we may or may not use, is eminently unfair to them. I mean, we have to work with an engineer's estimate cost, but what really numbers we're missing then is some actual numbers on energy savings and net savings as far as maintenance costs. But you can't go out to market, being in the business, you get another bid in a long time on very much of things. If you ask 3 people to bid and said, well, we just wanted to know a number for fun of it. And I think
you need to know apples to apples first.
Right. Well, and you also need to be seriously considering to do the project at that point before you ask. So anyway, sorry.
So Gary's going to give us an assessment of what we need to make the existing system work for us.
Well, as I explained in the past, of course, we take care of the most important, the critical ones first. offices, obviously this area, they do have a priority. And as I've shared with you before, we too, our suppliers have been notified of this current situation. Out of the 95 heat pumps that are in this building, we have taken care of 24 of them now. Actually 23, the 24th one will be as soon as it arrives here. That's up in the top floor. We're replacing them as needed till a formal decision is made, and whatever decision is made, that's what we'll follow with. I don't know if that
Can you
answer your question.
Can you speak to this, Gary, what this represents?
Oh, okay.
Because they all have a copy of
Oh,
it.
good. Long story short, it's a summarization, which was done very well by, anyway, as far as model and serial numbers, filters, what the tonnage size was. This is every heat pump that's in the building. This does not cover the boilers or the Evapco cooling tower out there in the yard or the air exchange unit. These are just the heat pumps that are in this building, and we have different color codings as far as, and it's documented there is what's been replaced, what is in a questionable state, and there are currently 18 of them that are not working to the point of compressor or reversing valve, intricate parts that need to be replaced. In order to do that, they have to come out of the ceiling, get the parts ordered, things like that. But given the age of these little monsters, that's where we're at as far as, okay, do we throw good money after bad or just replace them?
Can I ask what proposed means? I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Proposed?
Does that mean it's ordered?
No, we
Or it's
won't.
needed?
No, nothing will be ordered until we get proper approval
So proposed means what?
to be replaced.
So you still have to ask for the money to replace those?
Basically, yes,
Okay, so they're
but
not ones on order that were proposed.
that is correct. There's only
To be-
one on order right now that we're waiting for, that we've got approval to replace, and that's for where the circuit court judge. But right now, we're able to survive with what we have.
So let me just clarify, the yellow are the ones that have been replaced.
The new, they're
So
new, yeah.
Yellow are ones that have been replaced.
Yes.
But there are some yellows that don't say new. in it,
Right.
So I don't know.
Well, you'll see in 13, if you go down there on the first page on 13, you'll see 13A and B. Now that is, of course, the department downstairs. And that one, for some reason, and I'll take responsibility to that, doesn't have a model and serial number on that, but I have it here. But anyway, that has been replaced, what, 4 or 5 years ago?
So all yellows are new, even.
That-
Yes.
though
that's-
they think
yes.
We're not in the thing there.
Yeah, you'll see it in the status column. It'll say where it's at. I don't know what the green new is. That's in the old boiler room. Yeah, that's number
Treasurer's
6.
office, that's because they handle it.
I'm sorry.
That's the treasurer's office, that's because they handle it. There's term.
We know how to, we know who we have to take care of.
So this was just to kind of show the board that there's
Yeah.
an assessment of where we are and that there are, so 24 have been replaced, 18 have been identified that need to be replaced. And there are different sizes of these heat pumps that have different costs associated. So the standard, the majority of them are about a $10,000 to $12,000 replacement.
Yes.
And then there are probably about a third that are the higher units that are probably
Yeah.
around 15 to,
That's correct. Well, we were able to talk to our suppliers, and they were able to give us that price. Now, if we go and order these things in, say, like a quantity of 10, like we did before, where we had it, obviously the quantity and price would be different. It would be lower. That was one of the things that we worked out when we were looking at the idea of replacing all of the heat pumps. We go to our 2 major suppliers and say, this is where we're at, this is what we need. And they were able to configure a decent price for us for these in quantity.
Didn't you also work, or do some work on a budget that involved the ancillary equipment, some sort of, do we have that? I think we got it once. but I don't know if
You
I've
do,
seen it.
but that was for replacement of both of those critical items. And like I said, we're doing everything we can to keep them running. But that was like $390,000 for the replacement of the Evapco and for the air handler down there. But it was also, and I need to point out, it was an upgraded version. In other words, there's better equipment out there now, and that's what we quoted that on, only for the simple fact that if we were gonna go through and replace this, we want something with a longer lifespan, if you will. Even though these two items have been running well for 17 years, but they're starting to show wear and tear.
Can we get like a summary of, because it really, in my mind, we need to like consider, okay, if we're gonna keep this, we're gonna have to replace that equipment, we need like some sort of holistic idea of this is what we're investing in keeping heat pumps and existing equipment.
And I think that Jerry and I talked about that, and I think that the projection was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the projection was to replace all of the heat pumps and to update the equipment that's been proposed. It would be approximately, I think we were looking about 1.3, 1.5.
Yes.
So based on where we are today.
Can we verify that information and get it for us? I mean,
Well, yes, we can give you, how you want to say, a generalized term. Only the reason, you know the story as well as I do. That's why we projected these heat pumps at even up to $12,000 a piece. And that was to take care of the ordering and then the price fluctuations. For the last couple of years, we went through some serious price changes. So now, as even John pointed out, things are starting to stabilize a little bit. They're starting to come down, which is going to work to our advantage.
in either case, we're working with John's estimate and
Yep.
yours, but that's all we have, so. I mean,
Yeah.
We understand that that's not a number we hold you to, but.
No,
I think we,
but
we do have a
that.
quote, we do have a quote for the equipment, and I think that, like I said, it was right around 3.5 or 350, 370, might have been a little bit more for
You
the
mean for what?
replacement of the
That was 390.
390.
390 for those two items, and then the heat pumps, right now, we're paying 10,200, and that's a little high, but we projected 12,000 just to cover the fluctuations. So if you do that, if you go 10,200 times 95, but it would be wiser to do it for 12,000 times 95. That way you've got that cushion effect. And then, like I said, the two other pieces of equipment, that's a bit high as far as the price, but at least that gives you an idea of what's going on.
Wouldn't it be actually 70, because we currently have 24 of the 93 replaced?
Touche.
70
Yeah.
times 12.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
840
But I didn't want to
plus-
calculate it
plus
real quick.
400, 840 plus 400 is 1.25
So,
approximately.
and that's pretty much how we came to that,
Yeah.
number. However, what's not been factored in is what the discount right now, the price that we're paying is for every one off. So like if we have to buy one here, one here, one here,
Yeah.
then we're paying a higher price for them. So if the board were to make a decision that we were gonna replace 20, and there was that commitment in terms of a cost and the equipment, then that potentially those prices could conceivably be less, and we'd have to get actually a quote on that.
And you're right, and if you don't mind, I do need to interject, though. There are 8 different sizes of heat pumps in this building. And each one, of course, the higher the tonnage, that's where the price, that's why we try to give an overall price, a general mean, if you will, mean value.
Just to back up a little bit, and as Commissioner Allgaier was saying, that the other aspect of that is we wouldn't be moving people out of their offices to put in a whole new system. But I do know these are more difficult for you to change than what the new system would be. So
We have excellent crews that come in and do that. I mean, I take a personal pride in taking the ceiling, the lighting out, and anything else. The only problem, the issues that we run into is if there's a sprinkler head in the way. If you rupture one of them, you might as well just call Service Pro and say, "Come on, boys, you got a job to do." I don't mean to make that light of that, but it's we all know what happened to LeBaire. And
So, how many do you have ordered today? How many are ordered?
just the one, and it's in transit. And
So
forgive me,
a while back, we bought, I think you
excuse
spoke
me,
about it, we
Steve.
bought 10 ahead,
Yes, you did.
down to, you've used those up, you've replaced all those now?
Yes, yes.
So then it's time for us to, what you're saying is it's time for us to, are we ordering more or are we going to a whole new system? And I say, let's order more. And to back up even further, I think you, maybe Gwen, we had heard at one point that we wouldn't be able to get these heat pumps. And I think that's when we started, oh, he's gone.
Yeah.
We started looking at this whole new system because we weren't, the heat pumps, and we were getting parts off eBay for them. Do you remember that conversation?
It was a discussion, yes.
Yeah, so we were like, we better look at a whole new system, but
Yeah.
now it's changed. Now we can get these heat pumps.
That is correct.
So
And a
I
better
say
version of them too.
easy- I just say continue on with the heat pumps, but let's order another 10.
Or
Well-
take the 1.3 million and do it over 3 years and have a brand new system in 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, if you take those numbers that you get for 1.25, you can roughly, and of course, there's inflation, so make it simple, you can roughly do that 3 times.
Yeah.
For the price of the other system. So if it's only 15 years, that's still.
And not disrupt our roof offices.
Right.
Oh, and I might add also that the prices for those heat pumps is labor included. I should have mentioned that earlier, like it's a complete turnkey operation, if you will.
And a lot of times I know, Gary, you've come in and done, like, do the prep one day and then like do the install maybe at night or,
So we're not interfering with people's work.
obviously that's a lot different when you're doing 1 or 2 than when you're doing 20.
Gravity has a negative effect on people.
So if we wanted to get it all done, we roughly, if we budgeted, 400,000 a year for 3 years. Yeah, we kind of have a new system. With the exception of some of them being a few years older, that they've done already,
Yeah.
we have to replace some.
John's back.
If I could speak to this though, the current system, you're not talking equal. Like the current system is not equal to what has been proposed with the chill beams. There's people that are uncomfortable in this building, and there are people that don't have the control. I mean, so there's, people have less control of the space that they're in. So they're not equal. There's no, yeah, the proposed system has more diversity to allow people that are, their own comfort level. But then also the current ventilation system is a single energy recovery unit that's down in the basement by Jerry's office, but the ductwork that is distributing the air and exhausting the air, it's not sealed. And so the air that's on the 3rd floor on the opposite end is getting virtually no air. So the building as it is, you can replace heat pumps, but the ventilation is not working well at all. Especially like in the bathrooms, there is no exhaust coming out of the bathrooms on the upper floors, the gang bathrooms. So I just want you to understand, you're not keeping an existing system that is equal to what was proposed. They are not equal. The newer system would be more efficient and allow people to have a better environment. And that's one thing that we were fixing with it also. So anyways.
Yeah, I think we understand that. It's just, we have to answer the taxpayers to say if the new one is $2 million better than the old one. So that's the question I think we struggle with. So.
Anything else for John? Any questions for Gary?
So I guess to follow up this, we are looking for a estimate of savings in energy and maintenance. And I know you've said these numbers verbally, it'd be really handy. I mean, I just did the math. Can you just give us a piece of paper that has that? Or that's the only follow up I have, I guess.
And if we can make an assumption that we would order 10 or 20, it would help come up with better numbers, I think, if we said that we would, if we looked at over 3 years and we ordered 20 to 25, that would get all of them replaced in 3 years. So if we use that as a benchmark to replace 20 to 25 of them, and we'll, like, I don't know that we need to replace the units to, in next year, but within the next 3. So we'll have to like amortize that over 3 years, just because I don't know when the system's gonna go down, but we can work to come up with real numbers. And then, John, did you hear that also about the request? I know it sounded like you had done that study in terms of a cost savings or efficiency study or some recommendations that would be helpful, I think, to the board to have that as
Right.
well.
I think if I remember, and obviously it's been several years, I don't know if we talked that much about energy savings. It was more maintenance savings, but because we assume that the current system will be replaced maybe part by part. But we were under I think the conversation was that it will be replaced, maybe at one at a time, but it wasn't so much about how much it was going to save, but I mean, that's probably why I don't have it in front of me, is I think we just all agreed we're going to be replacing these items anyways, so we don't need to have it pay for itself. But anyways, I do think though that it's not $2 million that we're going to spend extra. I think it might be an extra $1 million. I mean, by the time we get rid of the energy recovery unit, the fluid cooler, and a few other items that are tired, I don't think that it might be an extra $1 million. It just for the record, I mean, so. Anyways, nope, I'm good. I'll do my best to come up with some kind of a cost energy savings that we could predict. And I'll talk with you, Deb, kind of interface with Laurel and you to kind of get current bills and that kind of stuff. So it's more of a realistic number.
Okay. And if there's like the projections in terms of what the actual cost would be now, as opposed to perhaps what they were 2 years ago when it was initiated, might be helpful.
Absolutely.
If you look at it on a 3-year thing, Gary, you'd have to like stick the cooling tower in one of those years and the.
That's what I was saying, amortize it, or
Yeah,
just say.
Yeah, you're just dividing up key pumps, but you're also adding those other 2 pieces of equipment into some of those years.
And
what makes sense.
realistically, the air handler downstairs would probably need more attention or sooner attention than that cooling tower. Realistically, I've got a couple of motors that are bad on that, but it's an arduous task to get to them. But nonetheless, it is still working. And that's part of like what John brought out, because there was an energy study done on this building, and we have the reports, and I know he does too, but of what was going on with it, airflows and all that. And then, of course, that's what led to those 2 motors being defective as well. But yes.
We'll work on getting those together.
Yes.
And just one more thing, you mentioned getting a price for maybe 20 heat pumps, maybe also 10.
Okay, well, like I brought up though, is we have 8 different sizes there, so that's why we kind of give a general up to 12,000, which we know it won't be that, but nonetheless, I can have my office do that and just, let's just say, hand pick. If you say 20 of them, well, we'll pick, the ones most likely are going to fail are the smaller tonnage, and that means 012 below tonnage, meaning the size of that unit. Those are the ones that I'm having the most problems with this building. So maybe we can give you a better price or better idea of that based on those sizes.
Thank you.
Sounded good. Huh?
Any
Thank
last words? I know I sure like the sound of 500,000 a year for 3 years as opposed to taking out a loan to pay a $3.5 million system.
Yes.
But thank you, John.
You bet. Thank you, guys.
We'll look for that information soon.
Are we all done?
Thank you, Gary.
Okay.
Thank you, Gary.
Very good.
Anytime. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
guys.
John.
Bye-bye.
I don't believe we need to go further on this. I don't think we can. What we wanted with Deb and arranged for Gary and John to be here. So we got this piece. Now we'll get the Parks and Recreation next week, and we'll get the broadband next week. And then I think we got everything we need to start making decisions, Kathy?
I think looking at past notes, I think your facade issue
Yes.
is kind of looming in the background a bit. And then the telephone for the 911, the 30,000 that we kind of said, could we get it this year? That's still kind of unknown. So you've got those different ticket items. They're not of this magnitude, but they're out there.
Yeah, probably as I make that call, right after this, so we're almost done, but I think for budget purposes, you could substantially reduce that number. Not from the roof.
Facade?
Yeah,
Number?
yeah, I think, if you want to put a placeholder, because it takes you some time, but nothing I heard from anyone told me it's at 450. I mean, if you put 150 there to be safe, you'd probably be hard to spend that.
Kathy, do you think that by next Tuesday, we could have a one sheeter with a list and projected cost? If Doug gets that, we've got the point, we've got the charter, we've got what the Parks and Rec request is, we've got the HVAC information, make a list, and then we.
Sure. And
Right.
you have your proposed operating budget that will be available for the public starting Monday. These discussions, they're important because you could say 24, 23, if we can get the telephone, we approve the jail to buy that dishwasher in this year. We can always amend the budget after you get through your public hearing and decide what you want to do, approve the proposed or change it, whatever. But I just want to say you're still good to go. You're green light toward 24. These are additional items that we knew. It's just hard to hammer these out in time to get an operational budget together. So you're on the right track. You can continue moving forward, just, having these things in your toolbox, knowing that they are going to be amendments more than likely to your 24. Maybe you can get it done in 23 if we can order something and get it in here, but you're green light, you're good to go.
Thank you, Kathy.
Sure.
Anything else? Then I think we're at the point in our agenda that we're ready to listen to public comment again. Yes, Bill.
How long is it?
5 minutes. There's no rule that says you have to take the whole thing.
It's a maximum.
Sorry.
No, I'm teasing you.
Bill Wiesner, Elmwood Township. On the election here, 20, yeah, right. One way to have no fraud is to have one person, one ballot, one vote, one day, no early voting. And get rid of the machines, all of them. 2020 election. If you look at Florida, I've seen the state and I've seen the ratios of Biden to Trump in 2020 ratios. It's like an 8-digit point, whatever, point with 8 digits after it. It's a number, 0.1269873, whatever. And it's the same ratio over multiple times for a week. Now, how does that happen? How do you get the same ratio of votes, Biden versus Trump, for a week? The same, like 8-digit, it's probably much longer than that. They cut it off at that. It's the same thing in like 5 other states, Pennsylvania and 5 others. And they showed the pictures of them. So what are we doing with these machines is all I can say. And early voting bags again. It was mentioned in the canvassing meeting. Boy, those are really nice. They're kind of expensive. Yeah, well, they've got to last a long time because we're going to be using them for a long time. Well, we just started with this early voting because of COVID with false pretenses that we can't go in there. And that's what it was planned for. Early voting is a way to cheat. And that's the way it's not just Democrat. If you look in Georgia, the three top leaders, they're all for it. They just signed another $100 million contract with Dominion in Georgia. And same thing with Wisconsin, you know, and the ERIC system and electronic polling books and all this stuff. Nine more states, 9 states in all, have decided to leave ERIC. What are we doing in ERIC? ERIC has been shown, they say it's to clean up the voting rolls. What it's been, it's a recruiting system for adding Democrats to the registration and taking Republicans off. I mean, I'm not saying partisan, but that's what they've seen is happening. And election source was mentioned again by Michelle. Well, that's Dominion. She called Dominion to get them to figure out how to, to get the map to show up. But do we want to trust them? Their president said, no. These machines are not online. But Eric Coomer, their vice president of, I forget the two qualities, but he said, no, we're online, AT&T, Sprint, we support a variety of different carriers. So again, there's solid evidence. Dennis Montgomery in the PCAPs, packet captures. Then there's Jeff O'Donnell in the cast vote records, which were there so we could check the elections. 81% have shown fraud in the states out west. He says actually it's 100%. And then there's Dr. Frank with looking at just the population statistics from the federal government or the census from the federal and the population registered voters list. He can show you to 0.997 accuracy how many people are voting in each of the townships. I mean, explain, don't just say, I don't believe that. Explain, how come? Explain these different things using the government statistics. Explain why that's not true. Don't just say it's not true. And I'll just close the handout here from 1988, 35 years ago, showing all the fraud. I don't have time, but the page 7, the top 2 paragraphs and the bottom 2 paragraphs are great, but I just have time hardly for anything here. But this expert says, I don't believe that computers should be used to count votes because they're not secure. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to make this? Yes, Michelle Crocker and Jen Zwicky.
Connie Cook. I didn't hear the whole conversation from Bill, so I just wanted to, all I heard him say is Michelle and call Dominion. So that kind of got me off my seat for a second. So I think we were talking about our canvassing this morning, and it was very nice. We had some guests come in to watch us do the canvassing. And what I said during canvassing is we got that new system that I had referenced earlier up, and it's called
It's election source.
It's election source, and it just it puts out, it doesn't record. I've got to choose my words so carefully. It puts the results up. It's not connected to the internet, but it is on our webpage. And the one thing, the staff was getting pretty tired. It was about 12:30 at night, but I did not want to go home until we got it to show 100% because we knew we had all of our precincts in, but we couldn't get it to 100. It was the first time we were using it. It's why we started on the small. It's what I'll show you next week. And I did have to make a phone call. I had Election Source. They were doing courtesy calls to see how we were doing through the night. Like, we have our results and it's not showing 100. So we had to call them and we had a tech call us back and we had to go through and it was waiting. The system was waiting for 2 more AV counting boards because we didn't know that we had to say
That they weren't being used.
that they weren't being used. So I don't have a line to call Dominion or anything like that. It was Election Source. And I just wanted to clear that up if that's what the comments were about. I just wanted y'all to know.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes.
Carrie Onan, Centerville Township. Okay, so this is again based on well, it's based on everything moving forward. I hope you all heard me when I said I love the idea of genuinely creating space for every employee here to speak openly and safely without fear of retribution. I think that's awesome. Some of us think it's a great idea and we need to do it very, very soon. Our concerns are not about doing it. We love that idea. Our concerns are primarily about your rushed process for choosing who will facilitate this awesome idea and how you all can truly determine an unbiased approach to move forward with. If I understand correctly, and please correct me if this is incorrect, but if I understand correctly that you all are moving forward with hiring MLI, thereby circumventing your previously agreed upon procedure that would allow your tax-paying constituents a chance to do their own due diligence and give you all a few days to hear from those who elected you to represent their wishes if you're going forward with MLI. Please understand that all those taxpayers you are somewhat disenfranchising by rushing this to save just a week or two. All of them, or many of them, will be paying much closer attention now with kind of a negative slant on your work. It's a very important task. And I heard the phrase, glean the results, and several other subjective descriptors for how you all will decide what actions to take with the data that's being collected. I mentioned before, I was a professional listener in my prior work for a good 2 decades. And I know full well how a listener without any words can influence the one doing the talking, especially in person. So I'm not a fan of this in-person approach unless I had such a strong sense of the person doing it, knowing that they had no bias and who in the room has no bias, especially with such a hot topic as what's going on in this building with all of you. And he seems to know an awful lot about the county. I don't see that. I don't see many humans. I don't know that I've ever met one that can bring unbiased into a situation that's so human and so charged with emotion. So I'm a big fan on just open it up and let them write their hearts out and get it all out to you. But by not honoring your previously agreed upon procedure, by rushing this through, you open all of yourselves up to much more scrutiny. It's unnecessary in terms of the possible motives. People will be questioning your motives now. People will be thinking, oh, is there a desired outcome from this? I'm beseeching you, whether you just agreed to something or not, I'm asking you to consider, please consider honoring your original agreed upon procedure. It sounds like it would only have slowed things down a week or two. And I really think all of us would benefit on the back end of this with the results being trusted. I'm concerned that the people on either side of the aisle, it's obviously not a partisan issue, could really doubt the end result. And it's not about the money, but who wants to spend $6,500 just to still have conflict? I think by honoring your original agreed upon procedure, you don't set yourself up as much for future conflict by casting doubt on the fairness and honorable nature of your efforts, because I do think they're honorable. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? Any commissioner comment? I have three announcements. Veterans Day, Deb is the main speaker. That's Saturday at the VFW Hall. Senior Services Christmas luncheon at the Leelanau Lodge is on December 14. If you're interested, see the Senior Services folks. And Trudy has arranged a Bluebird trip for us before the board meeting in 2 weeks to take a look at the brownfield application site, Bluebird and Leland. Trudy sent us all an email.
Move to adjourn.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.